Inspired passage on this, it's on the importance of receiving it, is by Florence Scovel Shinn from the book The Game of Life and How to Play It. There is always the perfect balance of giving and receiving, and though we should give without thinking of returns, we violate law if we do not accept the returns which come to us. For all gifts are from God, we being merely the channel. And I would just like to quickly add that I have two friends who want to give, and they never tell you when they need help or anything. And that hurts. And so we need to learn this reciprocation of giving and receiving and being on both ends. So please speak the affirmation on the screen with me, consciously receiving it into your life. Life is a joyous adventure because I put God first as my unfailing source in all areas of my life. I give thanks that I am healthy, wealthy, happy, and living in deep, loving connection with all.
Thank you, Nancy. That's pretty powerful, huh? A violation of universal law. Very interesting. Well, it looks like we have, oh my goodness. What? We have two visitors.
Here we go. Hi, Cindy Slicker. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You know what the secret of life is?
No, I don't. And what is that? A finger?
No, it's just one thing. Just one thing. You know, that is what you have to look for in order to know what life is about.
Well, that's great, but what is it?
Well, young lady, you'll have to figure that out for yourself.
Does anybody know where that comes from? City Slickers, right?
Oh.
Yeah, Jack Palance played Curly, and Billy Crystal played Mitch, but obviously it's Don and today. Well, let's give him another round. So today we're going to wrap up the month by offering another book that was on my summer reading list. And this is a book called The One Thing by Keller and by Papasan. So what I want to do is first of all put the whole thing in a spiritual context, because the one they offer it in a particular context for the general public, but the spiritual principles are there. Just as the spiritual principles were very evident in that movie, City Slickers, if you saw it. It's full of spiritual wisdom. So we see this in all aspects of our lives. So in this particular book, the idea is that if you master one particular thing, that you can experience more joy, abundance, and good of every kind in your life. Balance and all of those qualities that we've been looking to have more of in our lives. So I want to put it in a spiritual context because there's a beautiful quote. It's from 365 Science of Mind, page 115. It says, "The only time to make use of the creative principle is now. So, of course, the one thing obviously is going to have to do with our use of the creative principle. The real secret to its practical application lies not in how much we know, but in the use of what we know. So if you're feeling like you have to have more wisdom in order to use the principle, I really want to erase that from your minds right now and realize that what we all do is start from where we are and begin applying it. Because what Ernest Holmes says is he says the results depend entirely on things of the heart. The degree of conscientious endeavor, enthusiasm, joy, conviction, and faith that we can bring to bear on a particular situation. So again, it's those things of the heart that make the difference, and we all have that already. When we apply the creative principle to the best of our ability with heart, that's what makes the difference. And there's a beautiful Chinese proverb that says, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So when we use the creative principle, and we're going to be using it in a particular way today, we are taking that first step toward whatever our goal might be, whatever it is that we want to realize more of in our lives. So again, the one thing then represents the step that we take, the best step that we can in this particular moment toward that which we desire. And there's a principle that, again, another principle that I think is so important to realize is the quality of our lives then. This is an equation, equals the quality of the questions we ask plus our willingness to receive. And so that might be a little bit different for some of you, but those of you who do the process of visioning pretty regularly know that the quality of the questions that are in the visioning process stimulate and trigger the universal mind within us to come up with the highest solutions, but it's the quality of the questions that makes the difference. So we're going to be focusing on a quality or focusing question today. But before we do that, I want to talk about a little bit more about this law of giving and receiving, and re-emphasize. And thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up, because that often happens with people who have been taught to give, which is really awesome. I mean, it gets you in the flow of the law of giving and receiving. But if we don't receive, we violate the law. We actually cut off the flow if we don't allow ourselves to receive. And how do we receive? I mean, there are multiple ways that receive, but one of the ways that we become, yes.
I think your mic isn't on. I think it just isn't turned on.
Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so receiving. So the way that we cultivate receiving, a really powerful way to do that, is what we call the receptive mode of spiritual practice, which is what? The receptive mode of spiritual practice. Meditation. Meditation, this is why meditation is important to your mental health and well-being as brushing your teeth is to your teeth. And that's a daily practice that we do. Meditation is a way that we continue to cleanse and open ourselves to the universe. When we made that statement, I open my heart to the universe to accept whatever it was. When we meditate, that's what we're doing. That's why often with meditation you sit with your hands open to receive. So as we practice meditation, we are practicing being a greater, more open, receptive vehicle for the Spirit of the Most High to operate through. And it's the Spirit of the Most High. It's really important to remember God is everywhere in its fullness. So we're not talking about some outside force coming in through you. We're talking about your own divine higher self. It's really a way of setting aside
the conditioned mind, and allowing the authentic, divine I am self to come through, to be receptive to the wisdom of the Most High that this universal individualized self of you represents. So we're opening our hearts, our minds, our very beings to inspiration, to wisdom, to joy, peace, love, everything possible. So I wanted to set that as a framework before we go into this idea of the focusing question, because a focusing question only works as well as you're able to receive. So if you want to be a better receiver, meditate, and meditate regularly, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day. It'll help you be a better receiver. So Thomas Edison once was asked, if you were given 1 hour to solve a problem, how would you spend it? Anybody know what the answer to that was? This is what? Well, he said he'd spend the first 55 minutes formulating the right question. The first 55 minutes formulating the right question. Because he said with the right question, the solution was immediate. The questions we ask, the quality of the questions is so important for the quality of our lives. So here's the focusing question that we're going to be using today that I think is really powerful. This is directly out of this book that I told you about called The One Thing. And it goes like this. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Thank you, Dan. So we'll be using what I want to do is deepen the understanding of what this question means, and then we'll apply it. You know, it's always good to apply these things to our lives. So we'll be able to do that today. So here's the principle of receiving. I want you to hear that in this quote by Ernest Holmes, because this is a key thing to understanding what receiving really means. He says, concentration of thought or focusing is not an effort to compel. You know, we've been taught in Western society to effort at things, to work hard. This is the opposite. This is, he said, but a desire to permit the stream of creativity to take a definite form. I'm going to read that again so that we can get that. Concentration of thought, and that means if you have a question, we're going to use this focusing question, is not an effort to compel, but a desire to permit the stream of creative energy to take definite form. So take a breath. So this is what allowing means. We've heard allowing, receiving. So let's break down that question in the four parts so I can just help you see the power of the way that this is formulated. So the first part of the question is, what's the one thing? So it's a way of alerting the creative mind that you are wanting one thing. Wanting to focus on, you're wanting that creative mind to come up with one thing, not many things, but one thing, one powerful step that you can take that will make a huge difference. The next part is I can do. So what's the one thing I can do? Again, that alerts creative mind within you to come up with a specific action that you can do. And I'm reminded of something that when I used to be an elementary school counselor, and I had this program that involved a little boy and a dragon. And one of the principles that were taught in there were think and do. You can't just do the thinking. You can't go around just do affirming, and expect things to happen. There's two parts to it. There's the thinking, there's the thought process, and then there's the action. So it's what's the one thing I can do? Ernest Holmes says our minds should swing from inspiration to action, from contemplation to accomplishment, from prayer to performance. It is a well-balanced existence. Okay, part number 3 of the question. Such that by doing it, and so again, it's helping the creative mind realize that doing this one thing, remember you're tapping into this all-knowing mind of God, that by doing this one thing, not just anything, but this one thing, that it fulfills your purpose. Part number 4. Everything else will be easier or unnecessary. So again, when you do this one thing, I love this. Everything will be easier or unnecessary. So this is a powerful way to use the creative principle. Allow the universal mind come up with a solution for you in a very specific and powerful way. I love this question. When I told Dan, when I discovered this, it's like, this is really awesome. What a powerful question. Now here's the thing. You can specify this question for different areas of your life. I mean, that's the whole point. This is like a generic question, but then you want to specify it for whatever you're working on. So if you're wanting to enhance your spiritual life, here's a good example. What's the one thing I can do to deepen my connection with Source, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Or, let's say you want to build faith. What's the one thing I can do to build my faith, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Okay? Physical health. If you're working on physical health, listen to this. What's the one thing I can do to achieve my fitness goals, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Or, what's the one thing I can do to relieve my stress, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Relationships. You can say, what's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with my fill in the blank? My friend, my spouse, my partner, whatever, my dog, it can be whatever you want. What's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with you fill in the blank, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Another relationship. What's the one thing I can do to nurture my children or my grandchildren or whatever it might be, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Job. You could insert to further my career, to help my team succeed. So do you see how you can get really creative with this? Formulate your question such that you get, as Thomas Edison says, a very quick result because you've spent the time formulating the question. For finances, what's the one thing to eliminate my credit card debt, such that by doing that, everything else will be easier and unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do to increase my net worth? You fill in the blank. So here's the thing, is any practice like this is only as effective. In fact, I'm not going to say only effective, becomes more powerful the more we practice it, so that it becomes a habit. So this is one thing that I'm really looking at. I'm thinking this is something I want to develop a habit of, because once we form it as a habit, then that's the mode that we go into. It might even be on just like a slightly subconscious level, but then the mind will be operating that way, looking for the best possible next step of whatever is going on in our lives. And new research at the University of London shows that it's not 21 days that it takes, it's 66 days that it takes to form a new habit. Anybody aware of that? I mean, I know we've all heard 21, but it's 66 days. So this is actually from Gary Keller's book. And, you can see it's just a way to start and just check off the day as you're doing the habit each day. Something that he found online. But it's called a 66-day challenge. To do what? Oh, there we go. Lori's going to do it. I can tell. She took a picture. So this is how we form new habits. Think of what your life would be like if it automatically, the mind automatically went into asking this kind of question. It would keep you in flow and on track. I just love ideas like this, and they keep coming. The creative mind is so wonderful in presenting us with opportunities to live more balanced, full, and joyful lives. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 20, the voice of the Spirit within says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and will sup with you, and you with me." So Spirit, the all that is, stands ready to give you the kingdom. Yet, until you're ready to receive, to open your heart and open your mind to receive, there's nothing that it can do. So again, as we use meditation to train our minds and our hearts to receive, as we ask the specific focusing question during meditation practice, and then do the thing that we have been inspired to do, when we do all of these things, then life just becomes much easier, much more joyful, much more full and rich. So I'd like us all to turn within.
Your wireless went off, the battery's out, I think, so just...
Oh, okay, I'll stand back here then.
I'm
All right.
and I hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's just everybody turn within in prayer. And I'm just feeling so grateful for the bounty of the Most High, the abundance, the infinite supply of the universe, of the presence of God. Realizing that this infinite supply, this bounty of the Most High, is present everywhere, right here within us as our very own being, ready to supply us with our heart's desire. So I know that each one of us then, as we allow the gift to be given, as we open our hearts and minds and receive that good, whatever it might be, in the form of healthier relationships, better health, greater wealth, greater peace of mind, whatever it may be, that we have the ability to open that door that's being knocked on so continuously by the Most High to receive. So I know right here and right now today that each and every person has all that is necessary within them to not only give of themselves generously, but to receive generously. Knowing that as we do so, as we keep this beautiful balance of giving and receiving flowing, that we are doing our part to co-create heaven on earth. So I celebrate that. I give thanks for that. I feel blessed by that. I know we are all blessed by that. And I release this word to the omni-action of that universal law of mind, the universal intelligence of God itself, that takes this word and delivers it in the most beautiful way for the highest good of all. And I invite us all then with a vigorous Yes, and so it is.